Hello everyone, welcome to another roster review. If you haven't already guys, hit that subscribe button and notifications bell in the corner over there so you know each time we release one of these videos. And if you would like more content like this and exclusive content and more meta analysis and tournament reviews, that kind of stuff, and amazing discounts off our store, or if you would just like to support the channel, head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. Right, let's get straight into it then. Today, we're looking at Matt Robertson's Adepta Sororitas list that he won the Into the Hellstorm Chainsword event with this past weekend. I was also at the event, and the only game I lost was in the final to this list. And Robbo plays this absolutely incredibly. So let's see what's in his list first. So there is a Ardent Shroud Patrol detachment. Obviously this list is available on BCP, but you'll be looking at it right now on the side of your screen, so you probably don't need to go to BCP. But yeah, so he has an Ardent Shroud Patrol detachment, and that's just so he can save CPs. So there's the HQ is Morven Val. Absolutely incredible, and we'll cover in the how it works section what she does exactly and how she fits into the list. So you've got Morven Val, then you've got 5 Battle Sisters, because you've got to have a troop squad in there to make that detachment be able to be free. That's why it's it's got to be a patrol so that you can make it free with your Warlord being in there. Now Morven Val has to be the Warlord. She's got that rule, so she's Warlord, and she's making that detachment cost 0 CPs. You've got 5 Battle Sisters in there with her, a unit of 2 Crusaders, 2 units of 5 Dominions with their special 2 damage Stormbolters. So you've got 2 units of 5 Dominions, and each unit's got 4 of the special Stormbolters that are flat 2 damage. And then you've got 2 units of 5 Retributors in that detachment as well. Now each squad has got 4 Multi-Melters in and 2 Armorium Cherubs. So that's 2 units of 5, 4 Multi-Melters in each squad, and then 2 of them can fire twice with Armorium Cherubs, basically. And then there is a Rhino in that detachment as well, obviously to keep these units a little bit safe. Then that is it for the Ardent Shroud Patrol detachment. Then you've got a Bloody Rose Vanguard detachment, and in that detachment, the HQ is Saint Celestine. A Celestine is just bonkers value for a point. You would always take her now, I think, especially in this kind of list where you've got Sacrosancts. So yeah, there's Saint Celestine, and then in the elite slots here, because it's a Vanguard detachment, first of all there is a free slot, so it might look like there's 7 elites here, but one of them is free because there's Repentia in the army. The Repentia Superior does not take up a slot. Then there are 2 units of 8 Repentia and 1 unit of 5 Repentia. Then there are 2 units of 7 Sacrosancts, Celestine Sacrosancts. Now they have the bodyguard keyword, and we'll cover a little bit of what that does in the how it works section. Then there is a Dog Martyr who's got the Beacon of Faith Warlord trait and the Sigil Ecclesiasticus relic. And then you've got 2 units of 5 Zephyrum. Both have got a pennant in them as well. And you've got 1 unit of 5 Retributors. Now this might look like an odd choice because it's not in the Ardent Shroud bit, but actually this one's actually fairly good still, even as Bloody Rose. So you've got a unit of 5 Retributors, and then there you've got 2 Multi-Melters, and also 2 Ministorum Heavy Flamers, and also 2 Armorium Cherubs. It's a bit of a cheaper squad here, but the stuff they can do is pretty nasty as well. And again, we'll cover it in the how it works section. So that's the whole list. Now let's go on to have a look at how it works. So let's break this down step by step for the how it works bit. First of all, you got Morven Val. Now, Morven Val, I think the thing to mention is you want to mention Morven Val, Saint Celestine, and the 2 units of 7 Sacrosancts together. So the Sacrosancts have got the bodyguard keyword, not the bodyguard keyword, the bodyguard special rule, meaning that if they are within 3 inches of a character, that character cannot be targeted by ranged attacks. Now, that means even if they are the closest target. So this unit of Sacrosancts, for argument's sake, we've got this wall here. Now imagine there are no windows in this wall. It's a solid wall. I've got a unit of 7 Sacrosancts on my side of the wall, hidden back here, that you cannot see. And then I have Morven Val or Saint Celestine over here in front of the ruin, and you can see that character, and you can go and stand 1 inch away from that character with your squad. You still cannot shoot them because they are within 3 of Celestine Sacrosancts. My characters just physically cannot be targeted by any ranged attacks at that point, not even snipers. So they're just incredible. And that means that Saint Celestine and Morven Val can run up the board freely as long as they're within 3 inches of one of these 7-man Sacrosanct units hiding behind a wall somewhere. You can't kill the Sacrosancts. Out of line of sight shooting normally struggles to kill these Sacrosancts because they have 2-up saves with their Storm Shields, and there's 7 of them. And then, yeah, as long as one of them lives and is within 3 inches of one of my characters, they just cannot be targeted. So that's the way that those bodyguard are keeping these characters safe while they're moving up the board. So Morven Val, she's in the list because she's an absolute beatstick herself, and she also gives out some buffs to units. So her being a beatstick on her own is pretty amazing. She's got the Righteous Rage Warlord trait, meaning she has full rerolls to hit and wound in combat on herself anyway. And then she's got a rule where she gives all units within 6 inches, all like Sister's Core units within 6 inches, reroll 1s to hit and wound. Reroll 1s to hit and wound, which is an incredible ability there. She's essentially a captain and a lieutenant all in one model. So amazing value for her points already just with those 2 buffs and having full rerolls to hit and wound in combat herself, when she can make a sweep attack or a mighty strike attack. And, you know, it's flat 3 damage if she makes the mighty strike. So she is just bonkers already at that point. Forget about the fact that she halves damage, and she's got a 4-up invulnerable save, and she's got a 2-up armor save with 8 wounds, and she's got a 4-up feel no pain against mortal wounds. She's got all of these buffs built into her. And then there's one key ability there. Not only does she give all units within 6 inches reroll 1s to hit and wound, she can choose one unit in the command phase within 6 inches of her, and they get full rerolls to hit and wound. Like, reroll all hits and reroll all wounds. And that is how you get the most value out of some of these units. So, for example, you've got the Zephyrum. So I think it's an important time to talk about the Zephyrum at this stage. So the Zephyrum, the way that they get used is they hide behind a wall or an obscuring piece of terrain. They're not very big at all. It's 5 32mm bases you got to hide. So they go there just within 6 inches of Morven Val. And that, see, this is the key thing. If your Sacrosancts are there and Morven Val can just stand out in the open, she doesn't need to go behind a wall and block space where other models could hide, especially such small models. So she can just stand out in the open and, you know, not be worried about being shot. And then you've got these Zephyrum hiding behind walls, and she goes, right, this squad, you got full rerolls to hit and wound, now go. And they jump out there, and the damage they do is just insane. Like, imagine if they went into some Space Marines, right? And we'll just do the math on averagely what should happen. Say they go into a squad of intercessors, just intercessors. Now, they are strength 4. They are -4 because they're bloody rose, and they're flat 1 damage. Now, with the Morven Val rerolls on them, and then I know that the Sacred Rite that Robbo uses here is the Passion, which I think is 100% the correct one to use. Now, that is exploding 6s in combat. So every 6 to hit is 2 hits, is 1 additional hit, basically. So you run in there, and you have a look, and you're like, well, it's only 5. It's only 5 Zephyrum. And you go, yeah, but they get 4 attacks each on the charge because they're bloody rose. So you go, right, that unit of 5 Zephyrum's got 21 attacks. And you go, right, the unit has 21 attacks. We're hitting intercessors now. And you go, right, we get 14 hits, and 4 of them should be 6s. Then we're re-rolling the 7 fails. We should get another 5 hits with 1 more 6 in there. So you go 14 and 5. That's 19. 14 and 5, that's 19. And you go, we should have 5 explosions in there. So that's 24. So the unit has got 21 attacks, but they should get 24 hits on the target. 24 hits. Now you look at it and you go, well, they're strength 4 now. Power swords are now strength 4. So you go, right, they're wounding those intercessors on 4s. And you go, 24, that's 12 wounds. Re-rolling the fail 12 for another 6. So you go, that's 18 wounds. And Marines with power armor don't get a save against that because they're -4. So you go, that's 9 intercessors dead. Now, if you just look at the points disparity there, 9 intercessors is 180 points, and a unit of 5 Zephyrum, including the pennant that gives them rerollable charges, is 90 points. So they will kill double their value before they go down. Essentially, if you send them into the right targets, they will pretty much always trade up because they're so dirt cheap for their points. and then you can do things like put the full rerolls to hit and wound on them. They're just bonkers value. So these Zephyrum are used to hide behind walls and then catapult out and do max damage. The Sacrosants are there to provide buffs for your characters, and if things get too close, then they go in because they just become insane as well. You don't even need to put the full rerolls to hit and wound on them, because you can spend 1 CP to give them +1 to hit in combat, and then stand them next to Morven Val. So she's going, right, they're hitting on 2s, and they reroll 1s because they was in 6 inches of me. And they're also strength 6 -4 1 damage as well. And there's 7 of them. So they've also got like 22 attacks, 23 attacks or something. But there is a Dog Martyr in the list, and that's the next thing we should talk about now. So that Dog Martyr, with the Sigil Ecclesiasticus, what that lets her do is know an additional litany, essentially. An additional, hymn, a war hymn, that's what it is. Know an additional hymn, and also recite an additional hymn. So I know Robbo was doing the +1 attack one, the standard war hymn. And he was doing that and giving the Sacrosants also 4 attacks each. So that unit of 7 had 29 attacks, and then making them hit on 2s, rolling 1s with exploding 6s. So they have like 29 attacks, and they should get 35 odd hits with that. And their strength 6 -4. So the amount of pain that they can put out is insane. So he was using that litany, and then the other litany, which activates a second sacred rite for a unit. So because the passion was active, and he was like, well, the Sacrosant's a little bit slower than the Zephyrum, I'll do the +1 to advance and charge on a Sacrosant unit on the turn that I want it to go off and, charge something. So I thought that was very clever that he was doing that. A very nice ability. Also, he had Beacon of Faith on the Dog Martyr, which gives him an extra miracle dice every turn. And that was incredible because he was taking the Leap of Faith secondary, and it pretty much guaranteed him getting 12 on that every turn, getting this many miracle dice. So every game he was getting 12 points for that. So he would get 12 points for Leap of Faith. He would pretty much always do Stranglehold because he can get to 3 objectives, and he can challenge for a 4th with the amount of units he's got that can threaten you. And then like retrieve Octarius data or raise banners is incredible for this list. That's why there is a unit of 2 Crusaders. So they just they go in strategic reserve. What Robbo was doing. So that's we talked about quite a few of the units there, but the other key units to mention is the unit of 5 Retributors that's got 2 Multi-Melters and 2 Heavy Flamers in, and the Crusaders. So what Robbo was doing is he was putting those in strategic reserves for 1 CP. Both of them can go in for 1 CP, and the Crusaders were coming on somewhere and retrieving Octarius data in a quarter that was hard for him to get with his other stuff that's on the board. And then the Retributors were coming on 12 inches away, like within 12 inches of someone, and just shooting off those Ministorm Heavy Flamers. Now there is a 2 CP stratagem that lets you fire maximum shots with your Flamers, so they'd get 12, those 2 Flamers would get 12 shots, and the strength 6 -1 damage. Then he was using the Holy Trinity, because that squad has got 2 Multi-Melters in, 2 Heavy Flamers in, but obviously the Sergeant has a bolter, so there's a bolt weapon in there as well. So he's using the Holy Trinity strat for 1 CP, and I know it's a 3 CP combo, but it gives you 12 shots on your Flamers and +1 to wound. Strength 6 with +1 to wound, -1 damage. Then you can pop the 2 Cherubs, and they get another 12 shots. So those 2 guys get 24 shots, strength 6 -1 damage, with +1 to wound. But then you also have the 2 Multi-Melters firing off another 4 shots, and their strength 8, now with +1 to wound and -4 d6 damage. So there's a lot of damage in that squad coming on from reserves, and then the 2 Crusaders just coming on and playing the mission. After that, you've got the 3 units of Repentia. You've got 2 units of 8 and 1 unit of 5, and you've got a Repentia Superior with them. They are bonkers with that Repentia Superior. The Repentia Superior chooses one of those Repentia units within 6 inches of her, and that unit can advance and charge for the turn. So they're so much quicker, and their efficiency their damage output becomes a lot more efficient, shall I say. And also the fact that they're pretty much always going to get to where you need them to get, because you can use a miracle dice for like the advance roll, because nobody else can advance and charge in the list. So that's probably the only advance you're going to be wanting to use a miracle dice on. So if you've got a 5 or a 6, that unit can just automatically advance 11 or 12 inches and then charge something, which I think is, that's invaluable. That's such a great little catapulting unit there. And those 3 units of 8 Repentia is especially good in the mirror matches. against things like Blood Angels and also the Drakari matchup, because you chuck these Repentia out there onto an objective somewhere, maybe hidden and on an objective, one of the ones you can hide and hold. And if your opponent doesn't have very much shooting and they have to charge these to kill them, there is a 2CB stratagem where these Repentia can fight in death. So you like imagine like they get charged by 10 witches, and the witches just absolutely kill all the Repentia, and the Repentia go, yeah, but we fight in death. So all 8 of us get to strike as we die, and they'll pick up the witch squad in return. So essentially, against other combat armies, they can pick units up as well as dying themselves. So you can do damage in your opponent's turn if you like play this cleverly with these guys, and they can only be like charged to kill. If you put them in positions where they can't really be shot off and it forces your opponent to charge them, then you can trade up insanely well with these Repentia. So that's what they're in the list for. I think the last thing to cover there is, well, yeah, there's 5 Battle Sisters. They also just do retrieve Octarius data in various quarters and sit on an objective with objective secured. Yeah, the last thing to talk about is the 2 units of Dominions and the 2 units of Retributors and the 2 Rhinos. Not the 2 Rhinos, the 1 Rhino. Now, Robbo was putting 1 unit of 5 Dominions and 1 unit of 5 Retributors in this Rhino. And that was because the 5 Dominions let the transport that they're in scout move 6 inches before the game, like move 6 inches before the game. But if there's another unit in there, the transport still gets to move. So the Retributors get a free ride, essentially. So Robbo can put them both in this Rhino. This Rhino can move 6 inches. So we're just going to talk about the threat of the Rhino. The Rhino can move 6 inches before the game. Then you can disembark 3 inches. So you've gone 9. Then you can move 6 inches, so you've now gone 15 inches with your Retributors. Then they can advance up to 6, so that's 21. They can go up to 21 inches from your front line and then fire multi-melters from that point, 24 inches. They are just insane. They can pretty much reach the back of your board edge with this little combo with the Dominions in the Rhino, and that's incredible. And each unit's got 4 multi-melters and 2 Armorium Cherubs in, so those 2 5-man Retributor squads do so much damage. And then the Dominions, of course, they have their bonkers stratagem, which is 1 CP. They basically fire 16 Stormbolter shots, and for every 6 to hit, so there should be 3, for every 6 to hit, they do 2 mortal wounds. To hit. They do 2 mortal wounds. It's capped at 6, but you should averagely only get 3 6s, which is 6. So averagely, you should do 6 mortal wounds to something and then make them take quite a few saves at flat 2 damage, which for an 80-point squad is bonkers good value. Now, there's only 1 Rhino in this list. I think that's a slight drawback. So you got 1 unit of 5 Dominions, 1 unit of 5 Retributors inside that Rhino. Then you've got a unit of 5 Retributors hiding on the board somewhere, and the unit of 5 Dominions either hiding on the board somewhere or in strategic reserve with the with the CPs that you can spend before the game, because those Dominions are actually very scary, just coming on from reserve somewhere and going, bang, this thing takes 6 more wounds. Bang, this thing takes 6 more wounds. Now, they're going to die as soon as they come out to see something, but they pretty much always trade up. I think that's the bonus of this list, is it pretty much always trades up with its units because they're so dirt cheap. So that's how it works. Those are the secondaries it takes. Now, let's have a look at how we can tackle this and make the game harder for the Sisters player. So tackling this list, guys. First things first, a skewed list could cause this list a lot of problems. Now, what I mean by that is like a big horde. But like you've got to be realistic, and you got to think there is a lot of combat in this Sisters army. The 2 units of Zephyrum, the 2 units of Sacrosanct, and the 3 units of Repentia do actually have bucketons of attacks, so they can deal with hordes. But that's a certain amount of the list. Essentially, what you would be doing is, if you were skewing your list to be mainly like bikers, infantry, cavalry, that kind of stuff, and you didn't really have any monsters or vehicles in your army, you'd be effectively rendering some of this list useless. There are 2 units of 5 Retributors fully armed with multi-melters. Those 2 squads together are 300 points. Celestine isn't great at killing hordes. She's 200 points. So there's 500 points. That's 500 points. And obviously you've got the other Retributor squad. Yeah, there's some heavy flamers in there, but there's also 2 multi-melts in there. So that's even more of the list you're rendering a bit useless. The Dominions are there purely to deal like mortal wounds. Now, they normally do that to elite units because they do an average of 6 more wounds. That's not really going to hurt a horde that much. So you've got like 2 units of 5 Dominions, 2 units of 5 Retributors, another unit of 5 Retributors that's got some multi-melters in, and Celestine that aren't really good into hordes or anything. So that's a big chunk of the list that you go, right, those things, of course they can still do stuff, but you go, those things are not targeting optimal units. They're having to go for other stuff. So maybe a horde could overpower this and put more models on objectives and stuff and make it harder for this list to clear them quick enough. Because don't get me wrong, the list will still get through a horde. It will just take it a long time to get through a horde. So maybe you could, build up points, a lot of points before this thing gets into you. And then all of a sudden you go, right, well, can you catch me on points now because I'm so far ahead? So that's one way of doing it. The next way, I think, is out of line of sight shooting. I think that's a massive drawback of this list, because there is only one Rhino. So you can only put 1 unit of 5 Dominions and 1 unit of 5 Retributors in that Rhino. Of course, you could strategically reserve the 2 other units of Retributors and the other unit of Dominions, but I'm pretty sure that costs 2 CP, and then you could put the Crusaders with them as well. But then, like all of your Repentia, if you want to put them in as well, it's also all of a sudden it's costing you 3 or 4 command points to be able to put all these units in reserve. But if you don't, those Repentia, the Repentia have got a 6 of invulnerable. They've got a 6 of invulnerable save and a 5 of feel no pain. If Repentia are left out in the open, and, same goes with Zephyrum and stuff like that, when your opponent's got out of line of sight shooting, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Even like things like Shadow Weavers will take care of Repentia, but people are taking 3 units of Dark Reapers with a Tempest Launcher in each squad. That could really hurt Sacrosanct. It puts them on their invulnerable save. It wounds them on 3s and then puts them on their invulnerable save. Retributors and Zephyrum, it wounds them on 3s and puts them on a 5 up armor save. So, like all of these things out of line of sight. Now, most armies do have an option, like a Scorpius Disintegrator for AdMech. They're actually really good into this. And then you've got Night Spinners and Tempest Launchers for Eldar. They're really good into this. You've got Wyverns and Manticores if you're Guardsmen. So, like, a lot of armies do have options to shoot out of line of sight, or have things like planes that can get to where they need to see behind walls and stuff to be able to shoot these kind of units off the board. So I think that's another way of tackling it, is out of line of sight shooting and airplanes, basically. And then the other way would, in my opinion, the last way to deal with this is by taking things that trade well with it, but also don't need to engage too much to play the mission, if that makes sense. So something like Drukhari, possibly, because their units are roughly costed the same as the Sisters units, so they can trade fairly well. Now, I know those Repentia are there, and if you go into the Repentia, they're going to kill you as they die. That's a bad thing. But essentially, you can trade with this list half decently, and you can kind of go, right, well, if I take Herd the Prey, and Necrons have the same kind of advantage with Purge the Vermin, you go, I take Herd the Prey as my secondary. As long as you don't engage me and come into my half of the board, I'm going to max that out. And then you could take things like Raise the Banners and stuff like that and go, right, yeah, again, if you don't come to me, I'm going to win out on that. And then you could take To the Last and go, again, if you don't come at me, I'm going to win on that. And you go, right, well, your Sisters list is kind of designed to get like 15, 15, 12 or 15, 12, 12 on your secondaries. And you go, right, well, I've got a list that's designed to get like 15, 15, 15, unless you engage me. You've got to come to me to stop me getting all of my secondaries and beating you by like 5 odd points. So you can, if you can take a list that's designed to go, like, not get 15 every game in every secondary, but if your opponent doesn't engage you, designed to get that nice 15, 15, 15, then the Sisters player is in a bit of a pickle, because some of their secondaries that they like to take with this list, like Retrieve Data and Leap of Faith, they cap out at 12. You can't get any more than 12 points for those. So if you can kind of put them in that position, then that will force the Sisters player to have to come to you, and then you can react to them rather than them reacting to you, and maybe you could try to trade up in that way. So those are the 3 different ways that I thought that you could tackle this army. If you guys think of any, please leave them in the comments below, because I'd be really interested to hear how you think it could be tackled. Right, now modifications. Let's have a look what we can change about the list. Right, this bit's going to be short and sweet, people. So I really like Robbo's list. I think the way that he's thought about it is perfect. It's a bang-on list, really good, very, very effective and efficient at what it does. Now, the only thing is, like I was saying, I think the weakness of the list is that there's too many things to get shot, and you start with too little CPs if you try to strategic reserve everything. So personally, the only change I would make is add a second Rhino. And the way that I would do that is because I noticed that Robbo has got 8 Repentia, 8 Repentia, and 5 Repentia. I would knock those down to 5, 5, and 5. So essentially, you're dropping 6 Repentia across the 2 different units in that in the 2 8-man units. You're dropping 6 Repentia, and you're going, right, that gets me another Rhino. There's literally the points to get me another Rhino. So you go, right, my Repentia down to 5, 5, 5. But now I've got 2 Rhinos in the list, so I can go 5 Dominions. Yeah, 5 Dominions and 5 Retributors, and 5 Dominions and 5 Retributors are all inside the Rhinos. And then you can go, right, 3 units of 5 Repentia and some Crusaders. That cost me 2 CPs to put in reserve now. And then you go, right, the Sacra and Zephyrum can automatically go in reserve in deep strikes. You go, the Sacrosants are the only things out on the board for your outline sight shooting and stuff like that. So that I think that changes the game and makes your opponent you think about what they're going to do even more now, so that they've got all this out of line of sight firepower, but no real targets for it. So I think that's a great thing to change about the list. But other than that, I think it's an incredible list. Like I said, guys, if you have any, hints on how to beat this or how it works on something that I've missed or any changes that you would personally do to the list, please leave them in the comments below for everybody to share, learn, and grow from. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, notifications bell in the corner over there so you know each time I release one of these videos. And like I said before, if you want meta-analysis, great discounts on our store, or if you would just like to support the channel, then head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. I really hope you've enjoyed this roster review, guys, and I will be back next week with another one. And until then, play lots of 40k, stay safe, and I'll see you later, guys.